Okay, excellent. I think while we are the last panel discussion, हमने अपना rehearsal कर लिया, and we had our own panel discussions back in the speaker lounge. And I think the panel is largely going to focus on busting a lot of stereotypes and myths that surround this entire topic of AI and short form. Are they really killing the 30-second spot or the 60-second spot? I think I'll set the context, and we've all heard today while we were revealing the report that there is a massive shift underway in terms of the entire media mix that's happening, right? But that's the big picture. We also talked about what's happening within the mix of advertisers. And we're seeing very unique media mixes that different categories are operating. And also depends on which kind of category are you operating at. Is it a highly established category? Is it a highly cluttered category? Is it a slow-moving category? It is a high-involvement category. And I think we've got a good mix of representation here from the industry today. Of course, Girish comes from the consumer appliances space, historically from a B2B background, and now then moving into more consumer-first territory as well. We've got Apoorva, who represents fashion and accessories. We've got Arti, who represents gold and jewelry and gold and ETF investments as a category. And we've got Varun, who's going to do a reality check on all of us, because Varun represents MIQ, and we've got platforms. He's got access to all kinds of platforms, and he's seeing where the money is really going, right? What kind of assets is it going after? So that's the context of it, and we'll start with the first fundamental job of marketing and advertising rather, is only three things that advertising can do. And that's what we believe in Madison, which is attention, memory, and response. It can generate attention or capture attention. It can build or refresh memory structures, or it can drive responses, right? And we're looking at the entire space of creativity, whether it is human-driven creativity or AI creativity, from that lens. So I'll just do an opening warm-up from a category lens. Let's start with Arti, actually. From a category lens, how do you see the role of communication? Just fundamental, from a category lens, the role of communication for you.
Very important for us. So I'm from World Gold Council. We focus on gold as a category, and in both its forms, so gold as jewelry and gold as investment. Communication for us is very, very important, because if you look at gold as jewelry, where we completely focus on driving relevance, which is a lot about emotional storytelling. So that's why, communication is completely focused on how do you drive relevance, how do you tell a beautiful, emotionally evocative story to drive relevance. But when we look at gold as investment, it's driven by more awareness, it's driven more by simplification, because when it's about investment, it's very important to talk about how easy it is to invest, and that's where we focus a lot on the simplification side of it, driving awareness. So from gold investment perspective, it's not just about gold as a strategic asset class. We also have core focus on driving awareness for gold ETF, and that's where we look at communication, which is very, very pointed on talking about the reason to believe, what it stands for, and that's where we kind of focused all the communications on.
Yeah, so the entire spectrum of very high emotion, high involvement, going all the way into very serious investment-focused communications, right?
Yes, both sides of it, yes.
Yeah, so I think we'll just set the base on the kind of communication challenges and tasks we're all dealing with individually, and then we'll come to what is the role of the asset and where it comes from, right? So let's break the pattern a little bit. If I come to Girish, it'll also be high involvement. So we'll go to Apoorva now, which is more fashion and accessories.
Good evening, everybody. I represent Bestseller, and Bestseller is a Danish fashion retail company. We retail out of over 80 odd countries, and we retail brands like Jack & Jones, Veromoda, Selected, Only. I see some of our brands being worn today in the evening also. From a communication perspective, because it's fashion and it's trend-first fashion, it becomes extremely important that we deliver these trends visually to our consumers, and that the job of it is to make sure that we constantly inspire consumers on the trends that we retail, the trends that are in fashion right now, and the trends that will make them look and feel good.
Excellent, thank you, Apoorva. I think it's a very challenging category, especially from the kind of market we're looking at. Very high clutter, very established both in traditional retail as well as commerce, and very transient, right? And India as a fashion market is a whole different
Absolutely.
experience in itself.
It's
right?
never a dull
There is
day.
no parallel.
It's never a dull day for us.
Yeah, never a dull day, right? So moving to Girish, a lot of high involvement categories, a lot of consumer education. How do you see that happening? And you've done the whole spectrum, right? You've done the tier 1 Virat Kohli level communication, but you also have to go down to talking about 3-star versus 5-star.
Yeah, so obviously, so to begin with, I think we're the only ones keeping you away from the bar, so we'll try to make it as exciting as possible and have a lot of fun on this panel. Of course, I belong to a category which is highly commoditized, right? All of us have air conditioners at home, but it's honestly a very low involvement category because the functional need is still much higher than the aspirational need. The reason you buy an air conditioner is just for cooling. And when you have so many brands kind of, trying to get into that space, again in a category where there are about only 35 million households in the country who have air conditioners. We're talking of a huge opportunity of 150 million households that can or would want an air conditioner because of the tropical climate that we are in. So ironically, Virat as a brand ambassador was not taken for the tier 1 audiences. The growth is coming from tier 3, 4 and 5 because that's where are the larger chunk of those audiences lying. The first time buyers जो अपने पैसे जुटा कर AC खरीदने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, right? Because obviously they want to give a better environment to their children, they can study better, they can sleep better. There are a lot of social triggers with the heat trigger. And clearly communication has a very important role to play in any commoditized category because, then it'll become like potatoes and onions. So unless you create a strong brand, unless I have a very compelling reason that I give you of why buy me, it'll then just be a price war. So therefore, for me and for the brand, communication is extremely important because that helps me differentiate versus the rest in a very cluttered space.
Excellent. I think from a brand standpoint, you've set the baseline for the conversation. Varun, I want to hear a very specific point of view from you. You're seeing how multiple different platforms, ad tech platforms, media platforms are shaping up, right? And in a very tech-first, data-first sort of an environment, how are they looking at communication and with AI sort of coming in? Are the platforms really geared up to support the entire sort of a communication spectrum from a very emotion-first, attention-building, memory-building sort of a communication? Or is it more, are platforms gearing more towards more scale? So you want to do asset generation at scale, so we are ready for that.
Hello. So, answer to that, yes. Now, I'll just take a step back in terms of sharing my personal experience to the whole thing. So 20 years of my career been in digital space, and throughout the journey, I've been hearing that, print is going to die, radio is going to die, outdoor is going to die, TV is going to die, and etc. But nothing died yet. Everything is alive. Only thing is it's transformed, right? The way outdoor is consumed or the way how the ads are delivered has changed. The way radio, technically everything have moved to digital in a different way altogether because the replacement of radio is technically the podcast and audio platforms. The way consume television have changed. It from an appointment viewing, it is more of a convenient viewing. So the whole ecosystem have evolved or transformed in a way, but nothing have replaced anything in a way. The whole the gamut of industry have I would say have grown drastically across everything. Now, a very interesting point Arti was talking about some time back that, some few years back, people are talking about TV is dying, move to digital. Now we are going back that, digital is dying, let's go to connected TV kind of thing, right? So that is not how it's supposed to be. I'm a strong believer of that platforms coexist. And that is how we see the consumer shift in terms of consumption also across platforms, right? We all, end of the day, we all are consumers. And we consume an outdoor when we are traveling. We consume music, again, depending on our time in terms of leisure. We, at back home, we consume TV, and so the consumer, the user, in terms of the user base have increased. So the volume is technically playing a significant role. Now, few years back, I would say 2016, we had almost around 250 million internet users. Today we're talking about 1 billion internet users. So when you're talking about the scale where then India was one of the premium market in terms of data cost, today India is the cheapest in terms of data cost. So average Indian consumer consumes approximately 4 hours of video content on a daily basis, mostly on a doom scroll. So when you're talking about that kind of consumption happening, you need AI to play a significant role in terms of understanding the user behavior, the content consumption, contextual, etc., in terms of creating the cohorts or bucket of audience for better targeting and engagement. Now, again, what platform works what time for what user, that technically agent or Gen AI or agentic platform will help you to define that, because again, the primary focus of this content in terms of whether short format or long format perspective also, that is defined by when when the consumer is using what kind of content on what platform. So that prediction algorithm, AI technically helps you to do that prediction algorithm.
Okay, I think I'm going to open a question to the brand marketing leaders first, right? And this is going back to the baseline that we set. The typical conversation is around AI or short form taking over, right? But I think that's a very media first lens of looking at communication. That's not a business first lens, right? So when you're looking at communication, how do you decide whether do I need a 60-seconder, a 30-seconder, or can I do just with short form? That's one part. The second part is, within short form also there is a whole plethora of options, right? Do I go the creator route? Do I create my own? Or I've created a 30-seconder, do I just get down edits of that to a 10-seconder, 6-seconder, right? So for each of your spectrum of communication jobs that you're trying to solve for, how do you decide that? Anyone can start. Arti, you want to go for it?
So like you mentioned that as a marketer, we do not look at media first approach. It's very important to have the right context, understanding of what you're trying to do. Now, in my case, for example, gold jewelry, there is a clear problem statement when we focused on the millennials, the young millennials and Gen Z. There was a clear disconnect, emotional disconnect with gold jewelry, and that's where we felt that there is a lack of relevance. And for that, it was very important that we tell stories which are relevant and emotionally captivating. And therefore, when we with that as a background, looking at our audience, which is more millennials and Gen Z, we started with 30-seconder. In fact, we did have 4-5 years back, we did have 45-seconders too, which is now we are a lot sharper. But yes, we do focus a lot on storytelling, especially when you're looking at how do you make it emotionally captivating. We also, like she mentioned, that for us it's also very important that our visual language is something which builds aspiration. Today when you look at the consumer, especially the youngsters, it's about the wallet share, and they have so many options. It's cross-category. It's not about gold jewelry versus diamond, but it's also about the gadgets, the experiences, the travel they do. And therefore, it's very important to understand that, if you were to vie for that wallet share, you have to be telling right story, telling relevant story. And for that, we've always looked at 30-seconder. But at the same time, it's also very important to understand that the attention span is coming down. It's around 8 seconds today. And all marketeers, we know that if within 3 seconds, we do not make a difference, we do not resonate with our storytelling, the younger generation, Gen Z, will move away. And therefore, it's very important that we also, when we design 30-seconder, Vivek, we also look at how do we create same story in a compact form, so which is 15-second or 10 seconds. So it is by design that we look at all separately and we ensure that the story is complete. And therefore, the choice of stories are also designed in a way that it caters or it fits into all 3 or 4 edits. So it's a mix of all. So it's not about, looking at how long the story should be. I truly believe that, if you have a strong content, I'm pretty sure everyone has seen Apple's Mother Nature story or Gap's Better in Jeans advertisements. They're such a long format and they all went viral. So if you have the right content, if it resonates with your audience, it has the potential to be seen and longer format works. So for us, it's all about the context and, what you're trying to say. And if it's story is evocative, I think it delivers the message well.
I think excellent point. And Apoorva, while you answer the original question, also throw some light on the formula that you've cracked for your category.
So to just add on to what I think everybody sort of discussed, is that there isn't a one size fit all, hey, this is a master of 60, or hey, this is a master of 90, and then there's a 45, and there's a 30, and there's a 10 and a 5. It depends on the category, it depends on the life stage of the business, what are the challenges that the brand is sort of solving for. We retail 4 brands. They're all on they cater to 4 different types of 4 segments of consumer. Their channel mix and their distribution mix is very different. Their product proposition is very different. The pricing is very different. So depending on the brand, our communication strategy is sort of different, right? If you're launching a season, which is what we do 2 times a year, autumn, winter and spring, summer fashion follows these 2 cycles. At the start of the season, we are launching about 800 to 1,000 odd options. We have to, within our own channel and within our own ecosystem to our consumers, we have to simplify their journey, right? In some cases, we have to we have to make the consumer dream of a particular category. Say, for example, for Vero Moda, it's dresses. Or in case of, say, Jack and Jones, if there is a particular fit or a denim fit that we are launching, we don't need a long format storytelling there. We just need to make sure that the consumer sees the fit on different body types, sees the various ways in which this person can sort of style their pair of denim, and then go about the life that they go about and turn up in the scenarios that they have to turn up. So essentially, really no one sort of format or one solution fit all. I mean, the biggest of the fashion houses in the world, which is Louis Vuitton, has invested last year, and they're building a studio, a full production film studio, and they're producing films across the maison, across the different brands that they retail, and that's all sort of long format. That's also thumb stoppers. So all of that works because consumers sort of really not looking at the second touch of the campaign, right? The consumer's looking, hey, do I understand? Do I see this? Do I register this? Do I like this? Do I want to buy it?
Girish, I think we were also talking about the business of selling versus the business of entertainment.
Yeah, correct. In fact, just adding up to her, seconds is in our mind, right? It's media deployment. The consumer is looking at content. Dhurandhar was some 3 hours, 40 minutes. It's the biggest blockbuster in the last 17 years. We're talking of a generation who has limited attention span, but yet watches a movie of 3 hours, 40 minutes because, and is a huge blockbuster. This is a story of India, right? It's all about the content, how engaging the content is. The time is immaterial. Your content can be engaging for 60 seconds or for 10 seconds. That depends on the kind of story you want to tell. As marketers, we're storytellers. Often we confuse media deployment with storytelling. The two should not be, interchanged in that sense. I'll give you an example that Blue Star ads with the same celebrity, which is Virat Kohli. My view-through rate for a particular creative 3 years ago was 15%. Last year, it was 54%. That 15% view-through rate was on a limited 5 million impressions with a ad secondage of 15 seconds. This is a 30-second commercial across 27 million impressions. Even then, the VTR was 55%. So eventually, it all boils down to content. Our first brief to the agency is create something which is entertaining. Okay, no consumer wants to see ads. You have to entertain the consumer and intelligently get your brand messaging along with it. Once you do that, then it doesn't matter whether you have a 30-second, 10-second or 60 seconds. Finally, it's how well you tell your story that matters. And clearly, when you're building a brand, there is no 10-second formula. When you're building a brand, you've got to tell a story. And the more compelling a story that you can make, the better you will be in the consideration set. That's what I think.
Varun, I'll come to you. I think Apoorva wants to go. But in the meanwhile, Varun, I want you to think about this, right? Because this is a contradiction to how platforms sell the ability to create content. It is more about a very transactional experience of a customer discovering a brand to buying it, but it's more transactional in that sense, right? It's not so much about storytelling. It is more commoditized when it comes to AI coming into the way we are selling AI and creativity at least, right? And there's the other extreme of what's happening in Hollywood right now, because there is a new AI tool out there which can make a whole movie, right? But Apoorva, you want to go first? Yeah.
No, I was just adding on to your point, right? The fact that consumers are not really reacting to secondage, the fact that consumers are not really reacting to secondage, it is so easy now for brands versus say when I started my career, right? Where we had to work hard on awareness, we had to work hard on persuasion. It is so easy for brands to be omnipresent. You can literally be everywhere. So it's the impetus is back on the marketers, the agency partners, the storytellers in the room and everywhere else, that we really work on persuasion. It could be something as simple as a static. It could be something as elaborate as a full movie production. But the act of persuasion is something that anyway is coming back into the mix.
Well said. TV is not dead, but the mic is.
Firstly, Vivek, I want to say sorry to you. Unfortunately, you couldn't make it like a nation wants to know debate because everyone agreeing to the same point here. So, the key thing, in fact, okay, let me put it in two ways. One is the life stage of the brand, that matters. Second is the objective KPI or outcome expectation of the particular campaign or activation, etc. Right? That defines, like, again, all said the same thing. That defines what ad format will work, right? Now, answering your point in terms of why the platforms are selling what the marketers are asking for, in fact. The reason being is, unfortunately, we got into a loop of reach and frequency at the lowest cost, right? So when you want reach, just the metric you're looking at, that I want to reach, I want to build frequency, and I have only this much budget. Now, you can't buy a 30-seconder at X cost. You need to have half the cost of 30X, then you go with 6-seconder or 10-seconder kind of thing, right? But technically, that objective is met or not? No. Now, interestingly, I'll tell you, a conversation happened almost a week back, 10 days, wherein somebody was challenging me in terms of, do you remember an ad in the recent past, apart from any of the clients you worked on, kind of thing, on television or any of the brand perspective, versus 20, 25 years back, you would remember an ad of Vico Turmeric or Cadbury or XYZ kind of thing. I completely disagree to that point because as a human nature, we always have a behavior of glorifying our past, right? We always say that wo time pe achhe chal raha tha, in fact, that everything used to be good kind of thing, but you're not taking the actual consideration or situation to consideration. That is, 25 years back, we hardly had few channels. Today we are talking about almost 400 to 500 channels on the linear TV. We're talking about country TV, at least around 30, 40 OTTs. We're talking about music platforms. We're talking about all these, and end of the day, the consumers. Now, the average buying pattern or the potential audience then versus today is very different. So you can't, and number of brands, forget about everything. How many brands used to be there 25 years back versus every category today is cluttered, right? You have multiple options for consumers. So everyone have to gain your market share or SOV, you need to be more present across, right? In terms of most of the brand, I would say 2 decades back used to focus on festive time promotions. But today, 90% of the brand focus on festive as well as, always on perspective. And this recently somebody from eForum asked me about it, so just adding that point. So all of this put together, now the format, coming to the format perspective, what the brand objective is? You want to build a story which is connected to an emotion, or you want to build performance. Now, what funnel the focus is in terms of upper funnel, mid funnel, lower funnel perspective, that ad format is defined based on that. So as Arti and Girish mentioned about, first, you can't define your communication or creative based on the media concept. You need to first define your objective, build on your creative, and then one thing also usually is failed is you tend to create one master creative and run it across all platforms. That never works. You need to create your customized creatives, as Apoorva was talking about, in terms of different platforms, because each and every platform, the consumer behavior is very different. You can't expect the same engagement or deliveries on social platforms like LinkedIn versus X versus Meta platforms or non-social, anywhere for that matter, because every let me throw some pointers here. Average consumer attention have reduced in the recent time to less than 6 seconds, right? So Girish was talking about in terms of how a long format works, but it also said that 74% of the creative is focused on if you have first 3 seconds, which is technically if you're getting the user glued to that first 3 seconds, then the delivery is the brand is delivering the entire ad, or the VTR is good, right? So that most of the creative part of it that failed. So the objective is to just deliver the ad, focus on performance, because end of the day, they want to go back, or brands want to go back with sales, visits on the sites, and etc. That with that KPIs, short form is technically because it becomes cost efficient in a manner.
Absolutely. We are towards the last 5 minutes of our conversation. So I want to bring in a sort of a closing angle to it. But one correction, Varun, you said 400, 500 TV channels. Bark alone tracks more than 700 TV channels.
More than, I said more than.
Right?
Yeah.
And the untracked number is 1,000 plus, right? So we still have that many TV channels
We have
alive.
more OTTs, I said 30, we have more than 60 OTTs also.
True, true. So, see, I think the one perspective we want to give to everyone is that the way we speak about media, and Ajit touched about it earlier, that we want to be seen as growth architects and not just media planners. But the only way we can do that is when we stop thinking about media from long form is dead, short form is the next thing, TV is dead, CTV is the next thing. The life of a marketer has only become more and more complex, because the job of communication, while it remains the same, but what has exploded is the media ecosystem in which that communication is delivered, and in what different shapes and forms it is delivered, depending on what jobs it has to do, right? So bringing us closer to reality a little bit. Now I want to add, this is a closing question to all of you. If I want to add the two reality factors of speed and economics, how do you choose between when you're building a brand, launching a season, running e-commerce, running sales promotions? How do you choose between now hundreds and thousands of assets that you need, human creativity and AI creativity? How do you make that choice?
So I have spoken a lot about the emotional long form formats and emotional storytelling. I just wanted to talk about the speed, when you need to be agile. So gold is investment asset class. And we make a case for gold as a strategic asset too. Now, in that context, just a little context on that. The market and gold are inversely correlated. So when the market goes up, the gold goes down, and vice versa. So while, we focus a lot on the longer storytelling when it's about driving relevance and, emotions. But in this case, when few years back, when the market was very volatile, we wanted to make sure that we serve our ads at the right time. So what we deployed is DCO, which is Dynamic Creative Optimization. We ensured that whenever market is going up, we have a different messaging going to the targeted consumer. In the same way, when the market is going down, we just talk about that invest in gold, because it's a great hedge against inflation, or it's a great diversifier. So we looked at customization, we looked at personalization, and therefore we delivered right message at the right time, targeting the right consumers. So this was very agile approach, very, very short messaging delivered at the right time, and we performed very well. We really broke the ceiling in that performance. So something like this, when you have a very clear target, you can have creatives, multiple creatives done, and then you can serve as per the need. So that works pretty well. So that's one example which I wanted to share with you.
Excellent.
I think here's the contrarian view. I will give you both sides of the coin. There are instances, because we retail brands in an omni environment, there are instances where either human creativity is not required, or it becomes a bottleneck. It impedes the speed to market. Some of these creatives, so as to speak of now, it could be a post caption, it could be A/B testing that we're doing on ads. Nobody needs to apply their brain. Somebody just needs to just produce that content. And that's where AI really helps. There is a lot of social media, and somebody spoke about the attention span, somebody spoke about the plethora of creatives that need to be churned out on a day-to-day basis. There are a lot of places or a lot of use cases where AI really produces the content at scale, and it's required, right? There are multiple audience sets or multiple ad sets or multiple campaigns that are working non-stop, and that's where it's better that it's automated and there's no human creativity needed there. But having said that, I am yet to see in India any fully AI generated campaign which has had sizable media spent behind. I'm yet to see across different categories, and maybe that's something that I may have missed. But every single large brand campaign or every single large effective campaign that I have seen is not generated through AI as yet.
So right now we're seeing a lot of TVCs being generated by AI. I think as long as we are human beings and we react to emotions, human creativity will play a role. Once we also become AI models and we don't react to emotions is when AI can take over us. But until AI is used as a tool, things like microsurgical strikes is where AI can deploy. If I'm monitoring 450 towns today where the temperature has gone beyond a particular threshold, and if I can generate a customized image, AI can do 2,000 creatives in seconds, which would have otherwise taken me months to do, and I would not be able to manage that. So speed of execution, microsurgical strikes, relevance, conversions can be done brilliantly by AI, but the basic brand building, the storytelling, as long we are all, we all made up of chemicals, we react to emotions. I think human creativity will play a role.
Varun?
I'm a strong believer of coexisting. Everything which you asked, be it the platforms, be it short format, long format, be it AI or human intervention, all I would say is bound to coexist. It is not like one for another in a way. Even with creatives, as Arti mentioned about DCO, Girish mentioned about in terms of creating an automated, depending on the temperature, or Apoorva mentioned about in terms of different sizes, creative and etc. perspective. Definitely, because that is something which, the master creative or the master concept, you still need that emotion or the people intervention, wherein customization of that is easy. You don't need to wait for a creative agency to come back with wanted yesterday timeline. So that thing can be seamlessly managed. But across, be it, in terms of media delivery also, today we're talking about a trading agent. In few months, we will talk about planning agent as well as the measurement agent perspective. Now, all of these things are needed, yes. The reason being is because the number of activations are increasing, the user base is increasing, the behavior pattern is changing. So you need beyond human intervention perspective, where AI can play a significant role in terms of getting all of that together. But without giving a right prompt, you don't get the right results. So to give the right prompt, you need the human to be behind that to run it.
Yeah, so I think until Agent Rabindranath Tagore or Agent Picasso comes in, we are okay. But to conclude, I think headlines can tend to be very binary. But earlier, Arti, what you were saying is that a lot of times headlines tend to be very black and white. In reality, it is not. And I think the complexity of being able to market and therefore generate business and growth has only increased and continues to increase. And that's something that we need to gear up for. If we, as agencies, want to be true growth partners for our clients, to be able to understand the complexity that they deal with, both from a consumer lens and from a competition category lens, and then to be able to advise the right choice of communication, instead of talking about it from a binary lens, saying, oh, why are you investing behind a 60-seconder? It is the era of short form film, right? It's not the era of anything. I think if it's the era of anything, it's the era of complexity and how we can solve and orchestrate that complexity for brands. I think that's what we'll conclude with. Thank you so much for all your valuable inputs.
Thank you everyone.